Hello everybody, welcome back to High Ground. My name is Tanner, and today we're going to be going over the new rosters for Rainbow Six Siege's North American League. So many changes, not only within North America, but just within the entire global ecosystem for Rainbow Six. So a new production company called Blast has taken over, working alongside Ubisoft. And so the regions have changed up, the format for both the leagues and the majors have changed up, just so many changes. But today, yeah, we're just going to be focusing on the North American rosters. You'll notice only 8 teams here. Astralis and TSM have dropped out. Going forward, this is going to be an 8-team online league, and I think there is the potential to go back to 10 teams if we get some more interested orgs. But for now, yeah, only 8 teams, only 40 slots. It's so competitive. It's so exclusive. We'll see how it pans out. But yeah, let's talk about these rosters. And let me mention one more thing. Not all of them have been announced. We're waiting on 1 for M80 and 3 for Space Station, but they've been leaked. Don't always trust the leakers, because I had to actually remake this video because Beast Coast finally announced their roster and it was slightly different than what was leaked. It seemed like there was a bit of a last minute change, but okay, with all that being said, let's get into it. For M80, and these guys were previously known as XSET. They played most recently as XSET in the North American League, but they did play as M80 at the Six Invitational. So returning, we have Diaz, Gomez, and Kino. They're being joined by Iconic, and this is supposed to be Spoit. So one of the flashiest, most ambitious looking rosters, probably in the world, but certainly in North America. Some of the wildest looking changes, not only the pickup of Iconic, but the importing of Spoit. So Iconic was formally announced, but Spoit was not, and that makes me a little bit concerned. Maybe he's having visa issues, not able to join them immediately. Perhaps they'll be playing with a sub, but it is online, so I don't know. Maybe he's just not allowed to play from Europe. Maybe he's going to play with some high ping. I don't know. We'll have to see. But when this roster comes together, assuming it hasn't already, this is going to be a big contender. The roles seem to work out almost perfectly. Gomez was on entry before. Will that still be the case? We'll have to see when you have the likes of Iconic and Spoit on your team. Kino and Diaz, though, have been a very formidable backbone. Probably one of the stronger looking support cores in the world. Both of them have looked really, really good, especially Diaz, just so consistent, so many clutches, really strong. Okay. And as far as like the top teams, the bottom teams, I'm not ranking these teams per se, but I think on paper that this looks like a top 3 team. I'd say along with Sonics and Oxygen, maybe Dark Zero and Space Station just a little bit below that, based on some things we'll talk about in a minute, and then Mirage, Parabellum, Beast Coast at the bottom, also based on some things we'll get to in a minute. On to Sonics. So the only team of these 8 to not make any actual roster changes since their most recent appearance, but they did make a roster change since Stage 3, of course, replacing Kansan with Citizen, who did play with them at Six Invitational 2023. Sonics were, a big underperformer, perhaps the biggest underperformers based on expectations at Six Invitational, probably them and Liquid. They both fell in top 16. Sonics were the worst performing NA team at the event. Every other NA team making at least top 12, some of them even making top 4, the likes of Astralis and Oxygen. But I don't think that should discourage believers in this team. Just look at this roster. It's incredible. They have really good rosters to contend with. Like, maybe that is something to be concerned by, especially the fact that they got double eliminated by NA teams at Six Invitational. But if Citizen can start playing like he used to again, he didn't have as good of a year as he did in the past, but he was such a monster in the past. Grixer and Rexon proven themselves multiple times to be some of the best fraggers in the world. Geo is a former world champion, and then Gunner is Gunner. So we'll see. He's a good player, but maybe a bit inconsistent. Maybe we can expect a little bit more from him going forward, but I think he gets pigeonholed into some unfortunate circumstances by way of the roles that he plays sometimes. Okay, on to Space Station. So yeah, Faults, Hot and Cold, TBD, TBD, and TBD. So this is supposed to be J90, Forest, and Merc. So 2 players coming over from Astralis, 1 from TSM, and Callout also coming over as the coach from Astralis. So this team really is more Astralis than it is Space Station. So 2 players continuing on in Fultz and Hot and Cold from Space Station, 2 from Astralis, but also Astralis' coach. So do keep that in mind. They might play more like them than the old Space Station. And that might be a good thing. Space Station have had their ups, had their downs. Like last year, not this most recent year, but the year before that, they were monsters in stages 2 and 3. This last year, they did get 3rd in stage 3, but completely different team now. So we'll have to see. They definitely underperformed at the Six Invitational. It seemed like they were going to have a lot of momentum based on winning the last chance qualifier. That's been a bit of a trend in the past, but no, they've been sort of scrapped for parts. Rampy going over to another team, Bosco retiring, Yeti also going over to the same team as Rampy, who we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, I really like this team on paper. Fultz and Merc being reunited. Once upon a time, they were on the same team, and then they were both not a T1 team, but they're both supposed to join TSM together, and Fultz opted to go to Space Station instead. And now here they are again. I would imagine those two will be on the entry, Hot and Cold, and J90 on the sort of flex soft support duo, and then Forrest on the insane hard breach he's been playing on Astralis. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this team. Perhaps one of my most anticipated teams. I think I'm going to go with them and one other team I'll talk about in a little bit. But there is every reason to be excited for every team in this league. It's going to be so much fun. Mirage next up, DP Fire, Kansan, Rampy, Surf, and Yeti. This team is sort of the leftovers from the other teams. DP Fire dropped from Astralis, Kansan dropped from Sonics, Rampy dropped from Space Station, Yeti dropped from Sonics and then dropped from Space Station. And then Surf, he didn't actually get dropped. Beast Coast probably would have, I guess they could have maybe hung on to him, but they opted for a new thing. Anyways, maybe not. Technically he was dropped, okay, but not in the same way that the other players were. He was dropped along with the rest of the squad in sort of the restructuring of Beast Coast and the entire league. But he was a good player on their team, and actually all of these guys have proven themselves at different moments, but perhaps all of them have not been as hot in recent times as they once were, barring maybe Yeti, because he had probably his best stage ever in stage 3 of last year. So this team looks a little bit weird on paper. I don't know who's playing the hard breach. I guess DP Fire maybe is the most likely candidate. He played sort of secondary support on Astralis, with Forrest being the main support, which is less of a true support than most other players. But he's played Ace in the past, and some of these other players have probably dabbled in a little bit of Habana, Maverick, Thermite, but we'll see who actually ends up on the hard breach. I would imagine DP, but like maybe Kansan or Yeti. Hard to say. Again, a lot of potential on this team, but it just does feel like a pretty big hodgepodge. We'll see if they're able to contend with the absolute top dogs. Maybe they can do it, maybe they won't. Beast Coast, Doc, Hat, Hyper, Mr. B, and Vertical. The reason I had to remake this video. So this was supposed to be Tristan, reducing the number of rookies in the incoming in the league from 6 to 5. I don't think did I mention it? It's Hat, Mr. B, Fish, Spiff, and Spiker. Technically, Spiff did play at SI. I hope I didn't already talk about this in this take of the video. But Spiff did play at SI with Astralis, but this is his debut within any league, specifically the North American League. Doc coming over from Parabellum, and so Hyper and Vertical, that's a decent amount of experience there. This was originally just going to be Hyper, and so that was maybe a little bit more concerning. Vertical has, in the past few years, had some monster stages within North America, but definitely had his struggles internationally. So, I mean, if he can play well within the region, I guess maybe he'll get his chance to play well out of the region. But, okay, well, we'll see what happens. Probably on paper, this is the weakest looking roster, but certainly the potential is there. Hat and Mr. B played together on reality TV. They also played with Tristan, but again, Tristan got replaced by Vertical last minute, so not as much synergy as you might have thought. Vertical and Hyper, did they both play on Mouse at some point? They were both played with England. Did they play at the same time though? I don't remember. Maybe not. Let me know if you guys know if these guys ever played together at any point, because they might have. They both sort of came up at around the same time. Anyways, on to Oxygen. We have Foxe, Newer's Dream, Sweater all returning, and Yaga technically returning, because he used to be on Oxygen. He was dropped technically for Newer's, I suppose, along with Kino. Those players both went over to Xset, but Yaga coming back to replace Vertical. It seems like a good upgrade and a pretty simple one. Also, they play pretty similar roles. Newer's and Sweater presumably sort of on the entry. Yaga probably on some Sledge Flex type stuff. Foxe also on some Flex secondary support, and then Dream, of course, on that hard support. So the highest placing team from NA at SI, they made top 3, beating out Astralis, who made top 4. And so I think there's every reason to believe they'll be the best team in the league, but they have a lot to contend with. As I mentioned, M80, Sonics, I think even Space Station's really scary looking. Yeah, there's reason to believe that they'll be the best team, but no reason to be sure that is the case. They really fixed all their issues in the second half of stage 3, and then they played well at SI. And if they carry their momentum, they should be pretty good. Maybe we'll see how well Yaga slots in, because he was never really spectacular on Oxygen. He really came into his own on Xset, so hopefully he doesn't revert in any sort of way to his previous slightly lower level of play. And I think Sweater maybe has a little bit of inconsistencies to shore up, but yeah, really scary looking roster. Then we have Dark Zero. NJR, Pamazoo, and Canadian have been on the roster for quite a while now. Gaveni played in the 6 Invitational with the team, but didn't play in Stage 3, so a pretty new addition, and they're being joined by Achieved. So Merc and Achieve, the only 2 players from TSM to find new homes. Bolo retired, Snake and Gasher didn't make it on a new team, so just 2 of them continuing the old TSM lineage, or whatever you want to say. Good looking team on paper. I do think they're in the shadow of Sonics, Oxygen, M80, maybe even Space Station, but there's no reason to believe that these guys won't be contenders for the major. There's no reason to believe they won't make the major. They can't make the major, whatever the case. They've had some struggles in the past, certainly. They're usually fighting to make the major, but pretty much, yeah, always fighting. Sometimes they just miss out, sometimes they make it. We'll have to see what the roster does going forward. The roles are maybe slightly concerning because I think every other team, it largely makes sense. I don't know who's playing Hard Breach here unless Canadian finally gives up the goose and goes back to Hard Breach. He used to play Hard Breach on Space Station when they won SI a few years back, but since then hasn't really played it, has been playing Flex. Unless, I don't know, they pigeonhole like NJR or Achieved onto it, who aren't, you know, they're not really Breach players. Canadian's the only one with the experience in the past, but that's not what he's been playing. He was Eclipse, and then it was Skies, and now Achieved is filling that slot, but will he go on to Hard Breach? I don't know. They'll figure it out one way or another, I'm sure. No reason to doubt Dark Zero at the moment, and I look forward to it. Achieved was always my favorite player on that TSM roster. And then finally, we have Parabellum. Laxing Skies, Fish, Spiff, Spiker. So the Laxing Skies duo reunited once again. They played together on Elevate, and they played together on Reciprocity, and here they are together again, forming a pretty strong experiential backbone for Parabellum. Fish, Spiff, and Spiker, all very young, very new players. Again, Spiff played at SI, but that's it. Fish and Spiker making their T1 debuts. Skies, I'm assuming, is going to be playing Hard Breach. Laxing, I'm assuming, is going to play, you know, flank watch, secondary support type deal. So they have their support backbone set up, and then put these guys on entry and whatnot, and see what happens. So they're my other most anticipated team. I mean, I think there's every reason to look forward to watching all of them, but I think SSG and Parabellum are the 2 that I want to see play the most initially, and we'll see what happens. I think M80 also, I mean, come on, Iconic and Sploit, that's crazy. But yeah, I want to see these guys play as well, because I think it's kind of cool. Reunite this duo, give them some new players to sort of mold, and see what happens. Okay, I think that pretty much does it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to leave them below. Which team are you guys most excited to see? I mean, I could see M80 or Sonics or Space Station. Like, maybe if you really like one or more of these players, maybe it's Mirage. Maybe you're hoping to, you're excited for the Yaga Foxay reunion, or you're really hyped that Vertical last minute got on this team, or Achieved found a new home along with Canadian. So two world champions, 2 titans of the game, and then Parabellum for the aforementioned reasons as well. Yeah. Okay, I think that's going to do it. Leave me a like, leave me a subscription, really appreciate it. And with all that being said, I will catch you guys in the next video.